Well, like I just said, today is Stump, the pastor. You guys just seem to get so much joy and excitement of trying to stump me. Can I get an amen? Hallelujah. Jesus on that. And so I just thought it'd be a great time to get a framing of what we just celebrated in the Easter days. You guys have any questions that you guys have been burning to ask? Yes. Oh, yeah, that's great here. And once you ask this here, I'm just going to grab the mic and then you can ask the questions so everybody can hear, because that guy back here can't hear very well. Speak.
In the second scripture, do they go to Galilee?
Yeah, Galilee. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, this is kind of the thing. You know, sometimes they're there in Jerusalem, and he says, go back to Galilee. And then in John, we see that they are back in Galilee there. Eventually they do make their way back there. And then the question is, why Galilee? You know, why not Jerusalem? Because that's where they are. Why don't you wait for me there? Some accounts have them there in that upper room in Jerusalem that Jesus comes and gets them. So eventually they do make it to Galilee. But then, you know, we're kind of left with, why doesn't he say to one? And does it say, yeah, that's a great observation.
Where was his mother Mary? Where was his mother Mary?
We really don't know.
I thought the second Mary was her until recently.
Yeah, no. You had Mary Magdalene and then Mary. And some, I can't remember. Again, you might be stumping me. I think Mary did come. I think that there were two Marys in one of them. One was definitely Mary Magdalene. We see that Mary Magdalene, you all know who Mary Magdalene is, right? She's the one who washed Jesus' feet. So there's kind of the one who kind of gets it. Still doesn't even get it there. That she's coming back. She doesn't get that he's going to be resurrected. Yeah. And you kind of get here that there is this, maybe not confusion, but you have two Marys, and you have one Mary, then you have the disciples, and then no disciples, and so, yeah.
Why is the headpiece folded neatly and the other piece of linen is laid around?
I like that. Gosh. Miss Denise just messes it all up. You know, she's got a loud mouth, right? Can I get an amen? Hallelujah? Yeah, all right.
She's from the youth.
She's from the youth, yeah.
19 teenagers.
Go ahead and ask that question.
Why is the headpiece of linen folded neatly and the other one's just laid around?
Yeah, we don't know. There is, you guys have etiquette, right? You guys, well, do you know that there is etiquette, you know, or do you just grab the fork and, you know? Yeah. But there is etiquette, even in the ancient time, and sometimes, especially if you folded something, it meant to say that you weren't done. I mean, we don't really know why it was neatly folded. I mean, John is very clear, isn't he, that this linen was neatly folded there. We don't really know why he's saying that. We don't, you know, a lot of people have assumptions. But my favorite one is, John is trying to tell us something, and that the angels and Jesus maybe even neatly folded it. And I think it is that his work is not finished yet. It's a great metaphor, isn't it? That, hey, I'm risen from the dead and my work isn't done yet. It's going to be carried out through those disciples who are going to follow me. Great question. Yes. Here, hold on.
I don't need that.
What?
We have to assume that Jesus knew that he was going to die on the cross.
Yes.
So why, when he's hanging on the cross, did he say, "My God, why have you forsaken me"?
Great question. Great. Has anybody else answered? I thought about that. You know, here's God's son, right? Again, you know, he knows, and then God sent him for this purpose, right? That here it is. This is my purpose to do this. Then he yells out, my God, why has thou forsaken me? Eli, lama sabachthani. That's where it comes out in, I forget which gospel has Eli, but Mark has Eloi, lama sabachthani. And there's a little different, and that's why in Mark they ask, is he calling for Elijah? Because Eloi sounds a lot like Elijah in the Aramaic. But what he is doing is very clear, is that he's quoting a psalm. Can we get mute on this, please? he is quoting a psalm on the handheld, Anthony. And he's quoting a psalm. And this psalm, I think it's Psalm 22. Anybody know if it's Psalm 22? Psalm 22. But it's one of those psalms where it is talking about somebody dying for the glory of God. So there is an assumption there that one is when you quote a first verse of something, and a teacher would know this, and Jesus was a rabbi, he was a teacher, that if a teacher or rabbi would quote the first verse of a chapter or a story, or especially a psalm, then he's wanting everybody to know the entirety of the psalm. And so in him quoting this psalm from the cross, he's telling everybody, look at this whole psalm. Look at this, and we see this whole psalm as somebody is suffering. Suffering for God and God's glory. And so we can see that Jesus is alluding to what he's doing, because his suffering and his death is for God's glory, right? It's to glorify God and to also save us, which is glorifying God as well. But one of the things that I love is like, why does he quote this, my God, why has he forsaken me? Because I think what you're getting at is, how can, if he is the second person of the Trinity, right? And he's God's only son, how can he be separated from God? Because that's what it sounds like, right? And I heard a commentary or a devotion from N.T. Wright on this very thing, and this is the one that I love, because everybody's wondering this. This is a question that Christians have been asking for 2,000 plus years. We want to continue to ask this. I don't think we'll ever get that answer. Why? This side of heaven, and I think we need to be okay with that, not getting that answer, but this is the one that I love, and this satisfies me. That experience of being forsaken by God, that's got to be a very dark and really, really bad situation a human being can be in, don't you think? To be forsaken by God. Jesus experienced that. So he's experienced the worst experience a human being could ever experience. The Son of God, the second person of the Trinity, experienced the worst thing every human being could ever experience. Yeah. Well, you can ask that next.
I am. It's John's fault.
Yeah. No, this is good. This is
it's
good.
Not that Sunday.
But this, Jesus is fully God and fully human, and he has experienced the worst part, feeling, that a human being could ever experience. So whenever we cry out to Jesus in any of our pain, he says, I know exactly what you're going through. I have felt, I have experienced the darkest, lowest, most awful experience a human being can experience. I know exactly what you're going through. And I love what Hebrews says. We don't have this high priest that doesn't have any identity with us. We have a high priest who is identified in everything that we have experienced. And so everything that we were experiencing, failure, loss, death, good times, bad times, disappointments, Jesus experienced all of that, even feeling forsaken by God. Now I'm going to let you ask your question.
It's his fault because he's already gone. But I've always been curious about this. Okay, and Trinity Sunday's not here yet.
Yeah, that's close.
Okay.
I'm preaching on Trinity Sunday.
I know you are.
All right.
But since we're on the subject this morning, okay. I think Jesus said, my God, why have you forsaken me? Because God is one and three. We sing it in Holy, 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 that hymn. God in three persons. And I've always looked at it like, forgive me, but God sort of looked in a mirror one day and said, they don't understand me, so I've got to get in there as a human being. So he said that because he was saying it to himself, because don't we forsake ourselves sometimes by choices that we make or things that we do? Because he was talking to himself. He wasn't really talking to somebody else. And then after that, he turns into a dove or a spirit, which we all supposedly do. So he was God the Father and the Holy Spirit. So it was all one person.
Right.
It's almost like he looked in that mirror.
But different.
Different, but the same.
Yes,
Okay.
but different.
All right.
Great question. Great. Let me answer this. First of all, when we talk about the Trinity, I think it's great to start where the Orthodox start. And it comes from the Eastern Orthodoxy, which is the separation of Christianity that happened kind of at the beginning. It's how Eastern people think. We're looking at Alexandria, Egypt, and then Jerusalem and Greece and all of that. They kind of think a different way. And then when we see Latin in the West, they think another way. And you're very Latin in your thinking. You're trying to connect the dots. And trying to find what is and answer those questions. In the Orthodoxy, they start saying we can't answer questions about God because God's too big for us. And I love what we talk about the Trinity is this holy mystery. I mean, even when we have the communion, we talk about this holy mystery. To me, when we talk about holy mystery, it's something that we cannot wrap our minds around. I think that's a great place to start because we want answers. How many of you love answers? Yeah, I love answers. They give you that warm, fuzzy feeling in your heart, and you're like, oh, I got the answer. Yay, me. Yeah, come on. We love answers, don't we? Everything in our life revolves around knowing the answer, right? You guys got your SOLs, right? Yeah, and it's all answer-based. Amen? If you don't get the right answer, what happens?
You do it again.
You do it again. And that's not a good thing, right? Yeah, so this, again, we start out in education of knowing the answers. I'm trying to think of something that we do every day. You have to be precise, don't you? Yeah, you got to be extremely precise in what you're doing. And it just seems like everything that we do, and even you got to be very precise in what you're doing. If you're not precise and you're not measured and you don't have it right, what happens? It stinks, doesn't it? I mean, the sound just stinks. Have you heard bad music? Yeah? Well, we don't like that. That's everything that our life revolves around is knowing the answer, precision. And that's what I love about the Greek Orthodox. And we take that into faith. And if we don't know the answer, if we can't explain it, then we get upset. But just think about it. If we knew all the answers, and especially all the answers about God, how powerful is that God? If we knew all the answers about God, we would be right there with God, right? Now, how many of you would want me to be God? Thank you. Lord, help us. Yeah. So I think this is a great way and just to realize that, we want to know the answers. And it's a great place to start about not knowing the answers. And I think getting at the Trinity, it's great to ask these questions. It's wonderful to ask these questions. But we got to stop and say, we got to have a point where we can't explain some of these things. Now, one of the things that you said, Jesus is saying that if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. So you see this separate person. That there is a difference, but yet they are the same. And I love what you said. They're not getting it. They're not getting it. I got to come down to show them. And I think what Jesus is saying there to tie back is, I'm not this distant, holy God that sits above everybody and zaps you with the lightning bolt or takes all the joy out of your life. I'm the God who has walked the walk that humans have walked, and I've experienced all the dirt, all the shame, all the humiliation, all the really bad parts of life. I've experienced that, but I've also redeemed it, and I can empower you to overcome it if you just follow me. So I think you're spot on. God's cosmic, and you got a little existential there, which I liked. Talking in the mirror, whatever. Yeah, there came a point where God said, "Okay, I gotta come down and show it." Yeah.
I think what you just said, you hit a nail with me. How often have you said they know how to walk the walk, but not talk the talk, but not walk the walk? Jesus experienced it, therefore He knows what we're going through. But if He was here on earth, such as it was you, He would not be available to all people at all times.
Mm-hmm.
But by being the infinite, I don't know if that's a choice of words, person that He is, doesn't matter where we are, or what we're doing, or who we are, or that, I think He's always available to us if we just ask for it.
Yeah. And I love what you said about walking the walk and talking the talk. Jesus showed us how to love like God, how to forgive like God, how to stand up to wrong behavior the way God does. I mean, when you see Jesus,
He
yeah.
set the example.
Yeah. All right, yep. And I got to wrap things up. Woo, I went quick. You guys like this? Okay, yeah, do this all. Okay, yeah.
Jesus is all powerful. Why do you have to experience pain on the cross?
Okay, can you? Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Jesus is all powerful. Why do you have to experience pain on the cross, though?
Yeah, that's a great question. Why did Jesus have to experience pain on the cross? And some people, this just goes, it makes me think of a lot of different things. A lot of people are like, God can't experience pain. So they came up with things like he just appeared to be suffering, and he appeared in this human flesh. And that argument goes back into saying God can't change, because God is unchangeable. So, I mean, if you experience pain, when you experience pain, right? I broke a mirror yesterday on my truck, and a piece went down into my leg. I experienced some pain yesterday. I'm actually experiencing some pain as I'm walking and talking here. But it changes you, right? Have you ever had a pain that changes you? Yeah, if you've ever given birth, right? Yeah, that kind of changes some things, doesn't it? Yeah, so God can't change, and so they said Jesus appeared. But it goes back to what we were just talking about. How many of us have experienced pain that has rocked our world?
When it showed the personal side too.
Yeah.
Because he had pain.
Yeah.
He experienced.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing here, two things, is that when he experiences pain, he's like, I can identify everything, even this, this excruciating torture. Which is why, we really need to rethink about, yeah, I'm not going to go there right now. All right. But a lot of times, we want to go away from people who are experiencing pain. Do you ever have that reaction when somebody's experienced pain? Especially when somebody's lost somebody dear to their lives, and we're like, we don't, you know what somebody's experiencing loss. It could be a divorce.
Just be watching television and see something change the station.
Yeah. Facebook, seeing all of this and that, and I think something that we saw here in our own community that I had to really watch, but that AJ, she's been missing for so long, and then now we just found her. That's rocked our community, and some people, are kind of removing ourselves. That's kind of our human reaction to pain and suffering, isn't it? We don't like it, but Jesus doesn't have that reaction, does he? He's like, he embraces it. And I think that's a wonderful thing to say, that when we're experiencing pain, Jesus isn't running away. But sometimes we feel that way, don't we? Sometimes we feel that we're experiencing this pain, and we've been praying. Have you ever had those prayers where you think, I'm praying, God, where are you? God, where are you? You're not here. That's when we need to let our feelings, that's when we need to have our minds jump in with what our feelings are going through. We might be feeling this way, but we know that Jesus experienced pain. And he's here in my pain with me. And what was the other thing? So that's the one thing about that pain. The other thing is he has to actually experience that. I mean, he has to experience it that way. That way he can say, I know what you're feeling. Have you ever had somebody to go, oh, poor you, you're experiencing this pain. Yeah, I'm sorry. But they've never experienced it, or they've tried to, I've had this happen. I've heard it in funerals. Somebody's lost a spouse or a child. Like, oh, I know what you're going through. My cat died last week. Trying to compare the pain and the suffering somebody does, things like that. If you've ever had that happen, or somebody tries to not deal with your pain in a certain way, kind of compare it to theirs. Yeah, compare it, things like that. You don't feel heard or loved or valued. I think that's it. And Jesus doesn't compare any of his suffering. He just says, I know exactly what you're feeling. I've experienced pain too. Let me walk with you. And so he has to experience the pains. That way he has a more deeper, richer, more real and authentic walking with us in the pains of our lives. And then you said something, so I think I answered why he experienced pain. You were saying something about the whole.
Well, you just said it. He had to do that because that's a human side of us. So he had to experience that as well as
Yeah.
happiness and
Yeah,
all of that.
Yeah.
He was this all-powerful, all-knowing, untouchable God. We wouldn't be able to relate to him at all.
Yeah.
But through Jesus, that is someone that we can relate to on many different levels. We've been angry, we've been in pain, we've suffered, we've been humility and friends abandoning us, and we've gone through all of these things. And unless we saw him go through all these things, we would not think of him as somebody that could relate.
Yeah. I kind of want to end up and wrap on this. Yeah, well, I mean, we see what we read about. That's what we do. We read about Jesus' suffering. But I want to end on this, the knowing that we've heard that Jesus has dealt with, has experienced everything that we've experienced. And I call this a head knowledge or a head faith. We have a great, wonderful head faith about knowing what Jesus has done. But sometimes we don't have that heart faith. We don't give God our hurts. We don't give God our pains. We don't allow or ask for God to come in and heal us and help us. And I know all of us deal with something. A little children's sermon about the dents. We all have dents in our lives. Amen?
Amen.
How many of us allow these dents to form us and shape us to go towards God? How many of us go to God and say, God, I'm hurting. Help me. Heal me. That's the first step in our relationship with God, is repentance. Saying, God, I've messed up, I've sinned, and I can't fix this by myself. I need you. So as we've looked and we've had this great head knowledge and discussion about what all God has done in and through Jesus Christ, I pray that you allow God to move in and through you, that you allow this head knowledge to be changed and transformed into heart knowledge, where you say, God, forgive me, God, help me. And God will. God will heal you, God will help you, God will walk with you. And that's why we give all thanks and praise to God, our Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.